I really think that the scholar athlete is a national treasure. It is a foundational element of our society. You probably know this, Molly, but the recent studies and the impact of Title IX, for example, on young women. 50% or 94% of all C-level executive women, 94% played sports. 50% played college sports. C-level. So these are the leaders. This is the future.
Hello, Molly here on the Say It Skillfully podcast with leaders, entrepreneurs, elite athletes, artists, and professionals like you who open up about defining moments, what's been hard, and what they've learned in finding their true north and pursuing success on their terms. For many leaders, success in business and purpose in life run on separate tracks. But my guest today has a lifetime proving they can powerfully intersect. He's brought extraordinary strategic insight to leadership and talent with roles including the Chief Human Resources Officer of Unilever and former operating partner at Blackstone, where none other than co-founder, chairman, and CEO Steve Schwartzman recruited him. Yet, what makes his story especially compelling is how he's applied his business acumen to a lifelong passion for baseball, using sport as a vehicle to open doors for young people facing an often unlevel playing field. He's helping underserved youth navigate pathways not only in athletics, but into education and life, and is a powerful example of leadership in service of others. I am thrilled to welcome back the CEO of Curve Sports and founder of CEO.works, my dear friend, Sandy Ogg. Sandy, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Hey, Molly. Yeah, it's so great to be with you again and again and again. And every time, whenever I get a message, a phone call, an invitation, and it comes from Molly, it makes me smile. So I'm excited to be here.
I am more excited, so therefore I'm going to win on that. I have to say to our listeners, so Sandy is extraordinary. Sandy was on my podcast years ago. I'm going to include a link for folks because it is an absolute must listen, his own life journey. Today we have a different topic, but I do want to make sure that listeners have a chance to learn from you that way because I was in awe and everyone who listens to it always comes back to me. So we have to do a shout out to our friend Marshall Goldsmith. Because
Marshall.
Yes, go Marshall, because without Marshall, I would not know you. I still have to tell you, Sandy, I remember the first time seeing you. I think it was at the World Bank. You were on the stage. You were just on fire about your work and role and talent. And so, folks, I just want you to know there's another whole venue there that Sandy can add so much value to you. And seriously, since that day, you were my idol. I was like, I want to be like Sandy.
Well, that's very kind.
Well, it's actually true. So this is really fascinating to me because this notion of sport, of baseball and its impact on you. I mean, I can see in what you've done with your organizations and your philanthropic work. So just start wherever you'd like to start. Take us through where did this passion and energy around baseball start for you?
Yeah, well, Molly, it starts actually from when I was a kid. And, I grew up in a family where my dad was a physicist. My mom was a nurse, and there was nothing sporty about our family. And you don't get to choose your parents, but my parents were incredible in so many ways. And then we had some new kids come to the neighborhood, a couple houses down, and their parents were college athletes, and all 5 of the kids were super sporty. And I found myself spending more time with them. And so when I was 9 years old, the 2 of us, one of the kids from the family, we were more or less the same age, went and tried out for the baseball team. And I made it. And that kind of changed everything. Because sports has defined certain aspects of who I am and left this indelible mark. And when like in the spring, when I smell freshly cut grass, it reminds me of baseball. So it goes back a long way.
So with your little kid buddy, you go out, you try baseball. And so I'm just curious, had you watched a lot of baseball as a kid? And because I'm kind of curious how, and then you're obviously not bad at it.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you ask that, Molly, because my grandmother was a baseball fan. And at that time, the baseball games would be on the TV in the afternoon when the professionals were playing. It was not a big TV sport, but she watched all the time. And we would sit there sometimes and watch the games together. So I don't know, maybe subliminally, somewhere I started to pick up on this, but I started playing, and I, I got to be pretty good at it. And then when I was coming out of high school, I played a lot of baseball, a lot of football as a kid. And so I had a football scholarship to the University of Virginia and an appointment to West Point, an appointment to the Coast Guard Academy. Uh, to, and basically, I was recruited to play sports in college. And I ended up deciding to go to the Coast Guard Academy because the football coach was a famous NFL Hall of Fame guy. And so I went to the academy and played two sports in college. And so it made a big difference. It kind of defined my course in many ways. And, as crazy as it sounds, I went to the Coast Guard Academy and I had never even been on a boat.
That whole thing just blows that.
Never been on a boat. Yeah, but I went because of the sport and that I could play two sports. I wasn't limited to just playing one. And so the sports has, and I think that in many ways shape who I am. Certain skills and certain things that you learn. I didn't realize I was learning them. Certain things that you learn that you can't learn other ways, or they're harder to learn other ways.
Yeah. Do you remember being a kid and just some of these aha moments about being on a team and what it means to be on a team and being on a higher performing or a lower performing team? I'm just curious if you have any memories.
Well, the thing that about it was I just loved everything about it so much. I loved the uniforms. I loved the games, and my dad would come to the games, and he didn't play. I never actually played catch with my dad. I never actually saw my dad sweat. Um, and so we were different, but he would come to the games and he would stand. I don't think he could really handle sitting there with the other parents. So he would stand out in left field and watch the game. And then after the game, he would come up to me and he'd say, "So how'd you do?" I did. You watched the whole game. What do you mean? How did I do? And he said, "It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. How do you think? How did you do?" You know. So, and my parents were so supportive of the whole thing, and it was really really great.
How did you not get carried away with winning and the outcome? I'm just wondering because it sounds like you really did love the process, but I think that's I mean, I'm a tennis player and everyone knows everything is about tennis for me. And so, that if you would get obsessed about the winning thing, it really can derail things, which is not necessarily easy for kids.
Yeah, I there was a a point. I was probably I was maybe 12 years old, something like that. And by the time I was 12, I was probably a little bit too concerned about winning. And so we got to the end of the season. We had had a good year. I was selected for the all-star team and all that stuff. So I was thinking, yeah, yeah, I'm kind of something. And then we had the father-son game at the end. And of course my dad was sitting uh, away. He didn't participate in it, which was perfectly fine. And so I was pitching to the dads. And so the first dad gets up, hits the ball, and we get him out, and he stays on first base. And then, there were like three of these plays in a row where we got the dad's out, but and it was like, ha ha. And for me, it was just a little bit too serious. I said, I can't believe this. The dads are cheating. And, rather than kind of just go with it and say, ha ha ha, isn't this funny? And so on. It was not funny to me. So after when they scored the first run, after we had basically gotten them all out, when they scored the first run, then I had it. I threw my glove down, threw the ball over the backstop, and stomped off the field like a little brat.
Your dad is like this.
No, no, no. My dad just says to me, so not your best moment. And he's like, does this game actually matter? Does it matter for anything other than the amusement of the parents who have been supporting you guys the whole year? So like, why would you? And I said, well, they're cheating. This isn't fair. And he used it as a moment to kind of say, hey, listen, you got to keep the context in mind of what's going on here. Winning this game doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And the fact that they stayed on first, and you should have just laughed about it. Haha, and they've been cheering you on the whole season. If they want to run around the bases 15 times, who cares? And of course he was right. That lesson of experience of what is the context that is going on here and what matters and what doesn't matter and, all of that. But see, this is one of these things where if you're not in it, you don't have that experience and the lesson that comes along with it.
Yeah. So did you have primarily awesome coaches or did you have, my gosh, can't believe that this is our coach. I'm just wondering how that went in your youth career.
Yeah, the first coach that I had on that baseball team was a colonel in the Air Force, and he was great. He was great he was not a particularly great baseball guy, but he was a great leader and a fantastic organizer and motivator of us. We, our team, the first year I played, we lost almost every game. The next year, we had basically the same team with the same coach, and we won virtually every game. And he was just terrific. And it wasn't like he was giving us this, great skills of doing whatever. It was just he was good at figuring out who was going to do what and when, and all that. It was great.
How did you see when you're a more elite kind of player, which is what I'm getting, how did you deal with the folks who weren't as good in baseball? How did you process that?
I was never too worried about what other people did or didn't do. I was much more focused on what I was doing. If I had a responsibility for the team, if it was my turn to pitch or if I was playing whatever position, I felt like it was my job to play my position. And and it was the coach's job to, if I was playing shortstop and I was, throwing to somebody at first base and they didn't catch it, that it wasn't my job to try to fix the guy at first base or whatever. That was the coach's job. Put somebody on there who can catch it. If you want us to get them out, I'll catch it. I'll throw it to them. And hopefully they'll catch it.
Sandy, that's very advanced, okay? It's easy for you to just kind of roll, but that's actually a very mature attitude for a kid. I have to be honest on that. When did you start to see, or maybe you didn't see, any maybe unlevel playing field? Was it all kind of everybody was equals? I'm just curious when you started to notice that distinction.
And are you referring now to the economic
Yeah.
and participation and so
Yes.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that now, you sort of fast forward to, I, my playing career was long in the, in history. And now I had my own kids and they're playing. And, where it really became stark was, and I didn't grow up in a privileged background. So, I was not underprivileged, but I did not grow up as a privileged kid. I mean, we got one present for Christmas, but we got one. And so that we were not underprivileged. The when we were to New York, I was working at Blackstone. We were living in Rye, New York, which is sort of like very privileged. And we had a little league, and kids who were great in the Rye Little League thought they were great. They were great amongst that small cohort of people. And so we had finished the Little League, and we were going into now playing on the big field, and now we're playing real baseball. And we had a traveling team that came from the Rye, were picked up from the Rye players. A weekend came up, and we had a coach, by the way, who was someone who grew up in Queens and was living in the Bronx and was a terrific, terrific guy. And we came upon a weekend, and on that particular weekend, a number of our Rye players were on, holiday somewhere, like in the Mediterranean or God knows where. And so we didn't have enough players to play. So he brought 6 kids from the city, and these kids were terrific. I mean, they were terrific players. They were terrific people. And you take these overprivileged kids and these underprivileged kids, and you put them together, and it was actually pretty cool. And lessons being learned, and so on. And then the kids came back from the Mediterranean or wherever they were, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what's going on? We've got now these new players on our team. That's my spot." And the families of of the town didn't think it was such a great idea that we had these other 6 kids that were from wherever. We pay the taxes in the town and so on and so forth. Our kids need to play. We said, this is not good. So we decided to move out of Rye, and we created our own team. The coach came with us, and then that was the moment I discovered that we were going to have an issue, because you had 2 of these kids, Molly, that lived in a room in someone else's apartment. Their whole family occupied one room of someone else's apartment. They were happy, and they were amazing. And so Maria and I said, "Well, wait a second. This isn't right. If they're great players, they are great people." So we then said, "Pay what you can, and we will pay the rest." And that was when it really landed on me that, underprivileged privilege has its issues, overprivilege has its issues. But when you put them together, you get something very special. And that team, interestingly enough, starting at age 13, by the time they were 18, there were 9 of the players on that team that went to play Division I college baseball from one team.
Free.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and we were tough in the thing of, you have to show us your grades. And if you're, because we're looking to get you in college. And so if you're not doing your work, you can't play. And I can remember, one of the guys who was, I mean, he was fabulous player, and his grades weren't great. And we said, okay, until your grades come up, you're sitting. He said, yeah, you're not going to sit me. I'm the best guy on this team. I said, oh, you're confused about what we're trying to win. I don't care about winning these games. He said, what? I said, I don't care about winning these games. I care whether you get to college. And shoot, with these grades, I don't know what college you're going to. So let's go. And what was interesting too is the kids started to help each other with the grades. So, this kid, maybe not the best player, but an outstanding student. This one, a great player, but not a great student. And they start to interact with each other, because if we want to win, everybody needs to kind of be able to do their thing.
That is super cool.
It was really, really fun. It was really fun.
So looping, because there's a whole depth here of the skills type of thing. So just talk to us. How did here you just got the mechanics going on, but then there was this notion of skill and development and how you're applying, I think, the rigor of that you see in work environments to sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is the baseball part. Our coach was really good and also a really good human and interested in that these kids would really develop and have opportunities and stuff like that. So the baseball part, that was good. The it was uneven. And when you see the situation where, you know, both parents are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make life work. And then, that's on, some of these kids that were a little less privileged, and then the kids that were overprivileged, where the parents were helicoptering over them and, watching every homework assignment and double, triple checking it and, doing all of that stuff. And when those things start to interact with each other, it's really interesting. And, I can remember one of the kids got, he was really struggling with his grades, and I was overhearing the two of the kids talking to each other, and one of them says, "Hey, let me give you a tip. First thing, do your homework. Just do it and turn it in on time. Number two, when you go into the class, say hello to the teacher. You don't have to bring them an apple. You don't have to be whatever. Just say hello." Oh, hmm. And giving these, all you have to just do the homework, whatever, done. And so the kid that comes back after like a week or so, he goes, "Oh my God, this really works."
That's priceless.
It was just amazing. It was amazing. That really works.
It's directly related to work. And that's where we're cracking up as well, because people think, oh, let me just do this job. It's like, well, how people think about you, how they feel when you're around. All these are really
Yeah.
basic things that transcend all
Yeah.
activities in our life.
And it's like, yeah, the
Crazy.
teacher is actually a human being. Imagine that. That person, that's a human being. That's not, and if you say hello, you don't, and you're not hanging around up there trying to curry favor or do whatever. You're just simply being a human with the,
Just got to get treating ourselves as human beings. Sandy, just talk about the parents when their kids are getting help, or I'm just curious the energy that they brought. I would imagine a lot of gratitude, and I'm just curious, what you learned from them.
yeah, I think, I really believe, Molly, that these clubs that house these teams, I think that is, a one of the fundamental element of youth sports, because youth sports is where the parent, the athlete, the player, and the coach, that's where they intersect. And it is an education system, just like a teacher, a student, and a parent. That's an education system. And, the parents, and some coaches look at the parents as a pain, because what about playing time? What about, this? What about that? Or they want to come and they want to coach the kid during the game, and all of these, these kind of things. So there is a role for the parent in this, an important one. And of course, there is a role for the coach and there is a role for the player. And when these roles get sort of goofed up, and people are, and the best coaches, I think, do a great job of kind of defining those roles and defining it in a way that the parent can be helpful and be the best version of themselves. But we also had to establish, sort of rules for the parents. Like, don't come into the dugout. Please don't scream at your kid, during the game. And what are the ways that you can be helpful? And maybe rather than after the game yelling at them because they didn't get a hit or whatever, maybe ask them how they feel about it and have the chat. and so on. And some of the parents were natural. They were just naturally amazing at that role. And some of the parents were absolutely horrible. I mean, horrible. And we've all seen this. And then you have coaches and a coach that doesn't realize that the parent is an important part of it. They sort of lose it. Well, no, I'm not here to coach to deal with the parents. I'm here to coach the team and win the games and so on. And no, no, here's what we're trying to do. So I think that when that triangle of the coach, the parent, and the player can really work, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's so funny because we didn't plan this, but say it skillfully, all part of the problem, all part of the solution. And this is really attacking all parts that have a role in it. And that ability to really appreciate that the system is what we're trying to nurture here. And that's your ability to clarify for people, it is about winning, but this is how we're defining winning. And that
Yeah,
ability to be clear with that. I think lots of times people get frustrated in all walks of life because so and so is supposed to inherently know such and such. And I love how you took on that role of helping parents actually, you know, grow. And because if the parents can grow, then maybe we have a hope that they'll help grow their kids
yeah, yeah.
versus stunt the growth. And I think it's easy to kind of be narrow because this is what I want to do. And what I'm hearing you is saying, you're realizing there's all these different pieces of this puzzle to make the full picture. I got to be able to work with all of it.
I've found, the parents of the underprivileged kids were the most gracious, most grateful, and the parents, not as a stereotype, because they were not all like that. The parents of the overprivileged kids often were, were difficult and looking to influence things that, you know, they shouldn't. But I still have contact with there's one of these young players who I'll never forget it, Molly. I'm sitting at my house and there's a knock on the door. And because we always said, listen, we're not worried about winning this particular game. We're not worried about winning this particular tournament because we're not looking for trophies. What we're looking for is college jerseys. If you earn a college jersey and if baseball gives you an opportunity to get into a college that you wouldn't otherwise or what have you, that's a great thing. And that means you have to develop yourself as a scholar athlete. And I'm sitting at the house and knock on the door and there's a young man standing there and he's got his college jersey on. He goes,
Oh, you burst into tears.
yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah. This gets to this whole meaning in life, and you've changed so many lives with the work that you've done in your companies. And I'm just kind of wondering what, is it for you that just keeps you compelled to help the young people? What do you get out of it? How has it helped you to grow?
Such a good question. I thought for a while, and this is when, I thought, well, gee, isn't this a good thing we're doing? And let's pat myself on the back for, isn't this a good thing? Until that kid showed up. And the way that I realized then it was for me. It wasn't this, the benefit was to me, not that, oh, aren't I this person who's doing all these good things for these other people? No, it was how I felt. I get, and I'm still in touch with that kid
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
We text back and forth. He's now a banker doing good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's interesting how those reflections come up and just the privilege to to have the experience of just appreciating different lives. And I think something that I've noticed in you, Sandy, is you can see it's kind of this beauty, the beauty of diversity. You can see these collisions when things come together, where somehow you're able to really tease out how do we make something very constructive and good out of that. And I
Mm.
think for a lot of folks, that's a real challenge, to the point of, well, it's got to be wrong or bad because it's different. And your ability, I think, to see things as they are and to work with it. And just even that move way back when you were in Rye saying, we're not going to stay here because this isn't right for us. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic thing. We're going to like the baseball thing isn't working. We're leaving. But, I just really appreciate and want to share for listeners, that groundedness in oneself of what we think we need to do is right. You may not be right about it, but in the moment, that's what the right thing is. And that's what I think keeps people going into such fulfillment. Because what I see in you is someone I feel like, you got a lot of options of things you can do and you get to pick things that you really like to do and have meaning for you. And that's
Yeah.
really awesome. It's really
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
sports gave me so many gifts that I, I, I feel compelled to to give something, that the sport gave to me. I should give to the sport. I should, and what better way to do it than the people who are in it?
Yeah. So how do you feel about the little, I call it the little ripple you're creating with helping create more accessibility? Do you feel like there's opportunity going forward where a sport can be better in embracing, all walks of life and giving folks opportunity?
Yeah, well, it's now evolved, Molly, from a local. We started off with the New York Youth Baseball Foundation and supporting softball, baseball, and softball teams, and now we have a national foundation called the Curve Sports Foundation, which is and we realized along the way that if you're going to do good at scale, you after a certain moment, going around and asking your friends to donate, they sort of get tired of it. And so the much better way to do it is to build something that is an engine that you can do well in order to be able to do good. And so we have now built the Curve Sports business. And, we're really blessed that we have investors, including our primary investor, Weatherford Capital. And we realized that one of the things that's missing in youth sports is capital. And so we are investing in these clubs now all around the country, and we're building a national network of these of clubs that have the foundation supporting them. So that if there's if there's a young person who doesn't have the money to be able to participate and they are at an elite level and they can't participate, then we help them. And it's really fun. It is really fun. And that we're building this national network of actually 25, we're calling them super clubs, where in these different locations around the country, where we probably have about 1,000 families that are involved in each of these clubs. And we're all working together to see if we can't make a difference, a bigger difference.
Bravo. I haven't caught up on that. That's amazing. I didn't realize that you had gotten that level of reach. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And we just agreed that we're going to partner with our friends at the IMG Academy, and we're going to build out the IMG local network of sports academies at each of these super clubs. And in fact, we have an organizing meeting tonight here in Tampa for the Tampa Super Club and the Tampa IMG local, the first one actually, in cooperation with the Tampa Bay Rays. So it's really, really fun.
That is
And everybody
amazing.
wants to help now.
Well, this leading is taking people to a place that without you, they wouldn't get to.
Yeah.
And way to put it out there, Sandy. God, I'm so proud. Not surprised. Just want you to know, but very proud. where can if people want to help, what can they do to help, and where can they find out more?
Yeah, well, I would say that it all ultimately is local. And I think the best way to help is to maybe find a family that they have a talented young person, because I really think that the scholar athlete is a national treasure. It is a foundational element of our society. You probably know this, Molly, but the recent studies and the impact of Title IX, for example, on young women. 50% or 94% of all C level executive women, 94% played sports, 50% played college sports, C level. So these, these are the leaders. This is the future. And it happens. And it's not surprising that the scholar athlete, because by the way, Aristotle figured it out a couple thousand years ago, that his place was a gymnasium before it was a school. And the original universities of this country were where mind and body have to be together. It's not surprising that the scholar athlete, but I think that if you can find someone who they really are talented, but they don't have the resources, help them, help them somehow. And it doesn't have to be something, crazy. I mean, we can always, if the with our foundation and stuff like that, that's always a way for people. But I would say much more, what should be much more rewarding and fun is to meet them and and help them. It doesn't have to be a big thing, in a small way,
Yeah.
to help the young people to be involved in these things, because I think a lot about AI. AI is coming for our jobs. No, it isn't. AI isn't coming for our jobs. The skills that we're talking about here are skills AI can't replace. Being present. AI can't be present. It can't be present. I mean, and AI needs to be taught, and judgment needs to be applied, and the skill of seeing that your teammate is struggling. You know, AI doesn't do that. So with these, scholar athletes are learning things that AI can't replace. And so that that's why, to me, this is is important in so many ways.
Yeah. Yes, you've nailed it. And when we can reach out and truly connect with people and get to know them and they can get to know us, and for sure, as you've shown, we get far more out of it than we may think we have contributed to the others.
Yeah.
And it
And
makes the
if
world.
you help one of those people, you're not going to say, "Oh, didn't I do a good thing?" You're going to say, "Wow, how I feel."
You could go on and on and on. So I would love to wrap on a few personal notes, just so folks get to know you a little bit more. So for fun here, share a few of your hobbies other than baseball, Sandy.
Hobbies other than baseball, I play the trumpet.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so and that's a funny story about when I was in high school. We had a new band director that came, was from the Ohio State University marching band.
Wow.
And so I was playing the trumpet and I was in the band, and he said, "Well, you're going to have to make a choice, because the band marches on during the football game. You're going to have to decide which uniform you're going to be in." And I said, "Are you saying that I have to choose between the band and the football team in the same school?" He said, "Yes, you have to choose. Choose wisely." So I said, okay, I choose to be on the football team. And unfortunately, my mother, of course, was absolutely furious that I had to make the choice. But I continued playing the trumpet for my own sort of amusement, enjoyment, and so on to this day.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so this next question, I define introvert as derives energy from within versus deriving energy from external. So would you say you're more introvert or extrovert, Sandy?
I'm more introverted.
I'm cut the same way. I can be sociable and I can like it, but I'm really draining my energy from within, which is why we get along so well. Okay, and then what might people, okay, other than this trumpet, because I did not have know the trumpet thing, what might people, even folks who are close to you, find surprising about you?
I think a lot of people would find that your question about introverted. I think people would find that surprising because they see me in a in a speaking situation or something like that. I people might be surprised that I love creating things. For example, the AI is the greatest thing that ever happened to me lately because I can sit around on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning and muse with it about ideas that I have. And I want to develop the idea faster. And so I can do many, many iterations with a particular idea in a relatively short period of time. So I love uh, putting different things together into interesting combinations and so on. And now I can do it and even write about it with the help of, Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, um, to, to get it into a form that I can then interact with other people with it faster. And so I love that. So that might be surprising. I love tinkering with ideas. That's probably maybe my most fun sort of hobby.
Your tinkering has proved very fruitful for many of us. So let me just be, I'm going to encourage you on that. Okay, just rapid fire. You're not going to be who you are now at work. You're not going to be in the whole baseball universe, but what would be a profession you would do in your next life?
Uh, I might be an investor.
Got it.
I might be an investor.
I like it.
I've been having a chance to practice a little bit as we've been investing in these baseball clubs, and I really enjoy the process of investing.
Any nicknames you can share?
Nicknames. When I was at the academy, everyone called me Auger.
It seems so obvious. I never thought about that. That's a good one. Okay, your favorite food or cuisine?
Favorite food, peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
No way. Kidding me.
Way.
Way.
Yeah. Peanut
Listen,
butter and jelly sandwich. Love it. The other thing, which I don't eat very often, but when I was a kid, my mom always had in her purse a peppermint patty. And so when I eat a peppermint patty, Molly, I am eating the memories.
no, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Crazy.
Okay, you've shared so much so generously. Do you have a particular top takeaway you leave with us?
I would say, kind of two things. I think a lot of people I talk to, particularly privileged people, are worried about AI, not as it relates to them necessarily, but their kids, because all of the things that they excelled at, memorization and standardized testing and all of the stuff that, and getting into the right school and all of that. And they say, well, gee, what does this mean? And how are we going to prepare them for this? And is their world and life, and I'm not able to influence it like I used to. And so I would say, learn the skills that AI can't replace.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is like what you do, Molly. It's, when say it skillfully, AI doesn't do that. And when you say it skillfully, you're talking about connecting with other human beings and being able to see that there's something there that maybe there's some potential that they have that could be brought out, or maybe there's something that's troubling them that could be talked over or whatever. And, these are skills. These are uniquely human things that are, we're going to need that in great quantity. We're going to need great quantities of it. And so I would say, I'm not worried so much about that. And, and of course, if there's somebody you can help them.
Help those who need it. Yes. So lastly, I just have to ask you, what was it like for you to share with us your journey with baseball and your passion for it and the difference you're making?
Yeah, it was surprisingly emotional for me. I got more out of this than I expected, Molly, honestly. And I'm not surprised because you are Molly. And it was to maybe it was so skillfully orchestrated that I had feelings about this session, not just sort of an intellectual trip down memory lane.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going there and feeling the feelings and being with us. I appreciate you more than I can articulate. You, my friend, are part of the solution, and you're helping us be safe, seen, and heard, and our true and very best selves. In any way that I can be helpful to you, my friend, count me in.
Well, that's very kind of you, Molly, and I appreciate you more than you know also. And so, thank you for including me. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.
I hope that will be very soon too, and it's really been my privilege. You take good care, Sandy.
Okay, bye.
Ciao, ciao. Okay, voice. Sandy uses his voice so skillfully and creates the collective communication where everyone can win. And I want to help you do the same. So check out Marshall Goldsmith's and my #1 best-selling book, Say It Skillfully. We have a Say It Skillfully 101 program to help you use your voice with clarity, with compassion, and with confidence. And my final thought, courtesy of Sandy, of course, a scholar athlete is a national treasure. And that is a wrap, folks. Thank you for joining us. Please be part of the solution and kindly share the show. Amplify Sandy's voice. Reflect on your own top takeaways and know that I'm cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said so that those and those around you have the accurate shared reality that makes work and life so much better.
Say It Skillfully is finding your authentic voice and knowing how and when best to use it. With clarity, compassion, and confidence, most communication and personal development preach playing the game, so you win. Say It Skillfully teaches you how to change the game, so relationships strengthen, performance improves, and everyone wins.